And good day, happy time zone, everyone, and welcome to a very fun wildlife excursion themed attract mode today. I will be your host and guide through this trip, Professor Birch, the resident Pokemon professor and such. We're going to be starting today off with SnowballSMB, doing a new Pokemon Snap Durice Island high score showcase. But first, and most importantly, our second in-person event, Out of Bounds Toronto, is happening on June 15th and 16th in Toronto, Canada. And today, April 20th, 2025, is your last day to get in your volunteer applications. Whether you'll be in Toronto or staying home, you can come help us put on a fantastic show. Just type !OOB2 in chat for more information. Now, without further ado, let's get on to that very nice new Pokemon Snap Durice Island High Score Showcase with SnowballSMB. Snowball, take us away. Snowball, take us away.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Snowball, and yeah, this is going to be a high score showcase of new Pokemon Snap Durice Island specifically. The way that this game sort of works is the region is split up into a bunch of different islands that have collections of courses. Durice Island is the northernmost. It is the fifth, the reef is kind of its own area, so it's fourth like full island, but fifth area. I'm going to be showing off the high score routes for all 4 courses on the island, the Snowfields Day and Night courses, the Outaway Cave, and the Steelix Illumina spot. So, not going to waste any time, going to just jump on into the first course, which is Snowfields Day, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good luck.
Thank you. So, the way high scores are for courses are tallied in this game, if I'm remembering correctly, are you have a total of 72 pictures that you can take on one attempt of a course. You want to take pictures of Pokemon in all 72, and then the scores for each individual photograph gets multiplied by the number of different species that you took a picture of on that course's attempt. So there are obviously some photos that are definitely higher score than others, like that Cubchoo getting pulled out of the igloo by the Beartic is much higher points than like just any sort of other picture of Cubchoo that you can get on this course. I am going to sort of look over here, and then when I'm right about here, hit that Crystabloom with an Illumina Orb. The Illumina Orbs make the flowers, the Crystabloom flowers, and Pokemon glow, which can cause certain interactions with the Pokemon to happen, like using the orb on that Crystabloom made the ferret burrow out, or jump out of its burrow, rather. This stage I like to sort of look at as 4 different sections. There's that first sort of area, and then there's this like blizzard area, and then there is a ice cavern, and then a frozen lake. This area, there's not going to be a blizzard on the night version of the course, and it's going to be a whole lot more hectic because there are going to be quite a few more species of Pokemon to get pictures of. But now we're going to take another alternate path. That is a really cool thing about this game, is nearly every stage will have alternate paths that you can take. Wow, Rare actually getting a good Frostlass photo. Now, this is the big reset point of this stage. We need Glalie to not be horrible. Alright, now I'm going to use the turbo feature to drive much faster up here. That was not my finest Glalie, but that is fine because hit Glalie with the orb, and Glalie is going to bite Avalug's tail, which gives us a really high point interaction to grab a burst of 6 photos with, and it also scares the Vanillux out of the cave. That is important for another interaction right at the end. Now I need to scan. That's scanning is another thing that can have that can trigger different Pokemon interactions. And also you have to scan in order to find the alternate routes. Now I need to hit this Crabominable. The photo burst mode is very, very handy because you can choose between taking 1 picture, 3 pictures, 4 pictures, or 6 pictures with 1 press of the button for taking a photo. So it's very handy for like getting a large collection of photos for one interaction that you need a lot of, like that Vanillux using, I think it's Frost Breath. I'm gonna grab that Mamoswine. And I wanted to make sure that when I took a picture of the Mamoswine, the Swinub and Cubchoo that were walking next to it were also visible, because there are a handful of different categories that sort of factor into a photo's points. We'll see it right here. There is the pose, size, direction, placement, other Pokemon, and background. So, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really understand how the background part of the photos work, but other Pokemon, just the more Pokemon that are visible in the picture, the more points you are going to get. So that's always sort of pretty handy to have. One thing that is fairly different about Snowfield Day compared to a handful of other stages in the game is there's significantly more Pokemon that we opt to do 6 bursts of, or just really bursts of any number. The next stage, I believe there is only 1 Pokemon that we are going to be hitting with bursts, and alright, 4,900 plus on Vanillux, that's really good. My estimate for this showcase is always pretty generous, and like 80% of that reason is the big Pokemon on the next stage. Also, a 6.69 million on Snowfield Day is really, really good. I'm very happy with how that stage went, especially given the fact that Glalie can be a huge reset point. But now we are going on to the nighttime course. Home of Suicune, the biggest run killer that this run has. Also, fun fact about this stage has the highest total number of different species of Pokemon of any stage that, at the very least in terms of the high score, but I think also just in general. There are lots and lots of Pokemon on this one. Going to try to get that Piplup as it's turning around. That is a very difficult picture to get, ideally, because you want to... Mightyana, stop trying to eat Santa Claus, please. You want a Pokemon facing towards you as frequently as possible, because that just gives you more points for the direction category on a picture. And alright, that's going to be a reset. It looks like I boosted a little too hard on Delibird and got too far forward on the track, and that meant Sandslash got pushed over to the back snow mound later than normal, and that made it so the Braviary was already gone. So if you hit the Sandslash when it's in the back like that, with an Illumina Orb, a Braviary will show up and just start yelling at it for some reason. And that's a really high point picture to get. So let's get Snorant again. Let's orb the Sandslash. Sandslash, please get out, thank you. There's the Braviary. And now, we are moving on to the second part of the stage. This portion is going to have Crabominable, Abomasnow, Frostmoth, I think Frostlass, Snom, and Glaceon. As well as Furret and... okay, Crabominable's just skipping part of its animation. Interesting. Alright, I gotta boost a little bit to get further ahead. I was not prepared for that. Get Frostlass, and then... I need to look up here. Orb Glaceon. Double Fruit Bonk that Crabominable. Snag Glaceon as it's jumping up like that. Hit that Crabominable with an orb, so that way it will punch the tree and get a bunch of Snoms to fall out. Grab Furret and Weavile as they both run past and go into the Crystal Cave, or the Ice Cave. The cave portion, the trade-off is the cave portion is much more chill on the night course as opposed to the day, because we don't need any of the Pokemon to do something fancy like Glalie biting Avalug's tail. I will play music. That is another thing that you can do. You can play a little tune and some Pokemon will react differently. I'm going to bonk the Vanillix to wake it up a little bit, throw a fruit over at Cubchoo, and try to get this Vivian nice and big in the shot. That was a really good Vivian. Grab Cubchoo. And now we are on to the sort of make or break portion of this stage, and I really hope that the only reset I'm going to have on this stage was that first one. That was nice and early, because we're nearing the end of the stage, and this is where the big reset point normally is. Magikarp, I need you to jump up there, thank you. Grab Beartic. Grab Mamoswine. Here comes Suicune. I have to hit it with an orb as it's running across. Nice. Got one. Grab Swinub real quick, and now I am going to use 2 6 bursts on Suicune. Hit it with another orb. So that way it stops over here. And then just sort of spam orbs until it uses... Not quite sure what attack this is, but it's a big move. And now I have one photo left, which is good. Suicune should run away now. Or do you not? Yes, you do. Okay, cool. Grab that Aurora's picture. Aurora's unfortunately was looking behind it, but I wanted to get Suicune also still in the frame for that other Pokemon bonus. The importance of hitting Suicune with an Illumina Orb as it's running across the, oh, I forgot a species. Across the lake. I think I know which one I forgot to. When Suicune's running across the lake, it is going to just keep running once it gets to the shore if you don't hit it with the orb. If you hit it with the orb, then it will stop on the shore, and everything will be fine and dandy. Yeah, I got Braviary a little bit late. That's one thing that's sort of very precise about high scores in this game, is when certain Pokemon do certain things, that will alter what star level the photo is. And some star levels are just significantly more points than others. And that Braviary, when it's yelling at the Sandslash, is usually, I think, a 4-star. It's either a 3 or a 4. and it's drastically more than the 1 star. It is possible to ever so slightly, wow, 5909. It is possible ever so slightly to time it late, so it looks like it's still doing that animation, but it doesn't really count it. It's strange. I'm actually not sure which Pokemon slipped through. I think what might have happened is one of the picture... This is one thing that's very annoying when, like, sort of grinding for really high placements on the in-game leaderboards. Fun fact, there are in-game leaderboards for course scores, as well as total photodex scores, but every once in a while, the game will read a picture as a different Pokemon that is in the frame. That's not fun whenever that happens, because it happens way too often. Like, it'll be very clearly which Pokemon is, like, the main one in the frame, and the game's like, nah, I think... Like, I could have taken a picture of that Gengar that was in sort of the background of that sort of, like, tunnel, and it could have read it as a picture of, like, a Pumpkaboo. Just literally for no reason. It just sometimes does that. So it's very finicky. There are ways to sort of get that into your control a bit better, but it is very, very precise. Going to double orb that Gengar portal, so that way it does that 4-star interaction. Snag 3 photos in the single burst, just because I find personally single burst works easier. Bonk Hydreigon twice, look up here, and orb this Pumpkaboo. I need to look up here, because there's a Beartic walking around. So, for the longest time, I didn't actually know about that Beartic, and I kept trying to get a top 100 score on this stage. I was like, what am I missing? So then I looked it up, where all the species of Pokemon were on this stage, and I learned that there's a Beartic up on the sort of, like, skylight of the cave. I had no idea that that was a thing. Also, these Clefairies can be very rude. I'm going to triple burst that, and then I need to be very quick here, because this route change is really unforgiving on the timing, and you have to come down here because there are more species of Pokemon on this route, and there's Diancie down here, and Diancie is like the big point Pokemon on this stage. Alright, so that should be all 4 of those Pumpkaboos. Hit with the Illumina Orbs, so what this means is in this last area beyond the Crystal Cave, in the sort of like forest cave area, there is a Pumpkaboo there, and if you hit those first 4 Pumpkaboos with Illumina Orbs, then the Pumpkaboo at the end should be a supersize. And the supersized Pumpkaboo is just bigger, so it takes up more of the frame, which is nice. But now I'm going to burst down to 10, switch to a burst of 4, do 1, and then take 1 more photo, and then we have 5 Pokemon left. That last picture was not very good. Got Mawile. Going to scan so that way it'll give a little pose to the camera. Take a picture of Sableye. And then we've got Vivian, Pumpkaboo, and Rampardos down here. There's the supersized Pumpkaboo over there. That is great. Grab Vivian. Hit Pumpkaboo with an Illumina Orb, and it's going to do a little shimmy. It shimmies so fast that it's really hard to get, like, the optimal point of the shimmy cycle, because at times it will be looking at the camera, but it's moving so fast that it's really difficult to get that. Oh, hey, Rampardos. Rampardos, can you look at the camera, please? Nope. Well, it at least did the like big sort of like pose that I was going for. Once it eats a fluff fruit, it'll like pretty much just start yelling, and that's usually much better point-wise than the alternatives. This stage, I'm really happy with how this went, because the first half of this stage is probably the most frightening portion of a stage in this showcase, just because there is so much happening in just rapid fire. Once you get the route change, it becomes a lot more tame. It's still very scary, though. Also, the Magikarps are kind of annoying because it is completely RNG what number of Magikarps are going to be jumping off of that waterfall. I'm not a huge fan of that feature of Magikarp lore, but it is what it is. At least it wasn't one. So often I feel like I get like one Magikarp when it really counts. This is probably gonna be a 6.4. Okay, no, that's gonna be a 6.6. That's I think my second highest score I've gotten since resetting my save a couple months ago, so I'll gladly take that.
Nice.
And now I am going to very quickly take a brief hydration break before heading on into the final stage of the showcase. Because, well, I might have to yell at some Noibats. Every stage in this showcase has a really big reset point. With the first stage, it was the Glalie a little over halfway through. With the second stage, it was Suicune all the way at the end. With the cave, it's really the entire first half of the stage. And with this one, it is these 3 completely obnoxious Noibats at the start. Because I have to hit all 3 of them with Illumina Orbs, so they are all lit up at the same time. They love to dodge Illumina Orbs, run behind huge, like, geological structures. I don't think that was quick enough. They just absolutely torment the player for no good reason. The reason why I need to do this is going to set up a very specific interaction with Steelix towards the end of the stage. So this is the Illumina Spot stage, and the Illumina Spots are pretty much effectively boss stages, if you can really think of there being boss stages in this game. There are significantly fewer Pokemon on them, and there's also just much less travel distance. I hate these Noibats so much, by the way. This is ridiculous. The Illumina Pokemon themselves, there will be one of on the stage that keeps showing up periodically throughout the level. If you hit them with the Illumina Orbs, then they will start glowing in very fancy ways. With Steelix, I think it might be all of them, but Steelix at the very least takes a few Illumina Orbs to get that special glow. I don't know why I switched to 6 bursts, because I need a 1 photo first. So throwing that fluff fruit into that top hole, like right next to the start, made Steelix pop out of the first tunnel that it did, which caused it to then pop out of this tunnel. This big roar is a 4-star photo, so I want to grab as many pictures of that as I can. And now it's going to sort of just slither away into the tunnel. I also don't actually know if I got the Noibats on time. So we're going to be finding out in about a minute. Grab Carbink. I don't think that's an overly good Carbink, but Carbink is, I feel like, sort of the one Pokemon that you can really get away with on this course of, like, not hitting as high points because there's not a whole lot of, like, wiggle room. There's usually, like, a window of only, like, 200 or 300, as opposed to pretty much everything else having windows of close to 1,000. So I'm going to get Crobat to fly over here, and then it is going to sort of just flap around in a circle, and when it's looking at the camera, grab a picture there. I wish that it could have been a little bit centered better in the photo frame, but the timing on it was pretty good, so I'll gladly take that. Now, is a Noibat going to walk out of that big tunnel over there? Yes. Alright, that means that the Noibats at the start cooperated. So this is going to cause Steelix to jump out of the floor here, and it's going to curl up and go to sleep. So now I'm going to just spam photos and get absolutely destroyed by my controller's stick drift. I'm going to burst down to... I was timing my mashing very poorly, and the last burst was not very good. You want to be a lot faster than I was on the mashing. Got those last 3, though. That was pretty much just spamming zoom in and releasing very quickly to try to get the Steelix as big in the frame without it, like, really stretching out of frame. Now we have the actual run killer for this stage, Joltik. Because Joltik's movement is complete RNG. And that was not the ideal movement, but it was at least looking somewhat at the camera. It'll either do that sort of, like, movement where it's, like, scratching its face, or it will, like, wiggle so it's facing the driveway to these ruins, let's just call it that. The tunnel, that's what it actually is. And then face away from the tunnel as well. And... yeah, let's hope that Noibat was good. Noibat is also just very hard to get good points on. Same with Sableye, but not quite as hard as Joltik. Joltik's range is huge, because if it turns to look directly at you, it's like a 4,800 point picture. If it doesn't, it's pretty much 4,500 at best, I've noticed. So... that Noibat is not my finest work. I just sort of saw it in the thumbnail. I think I waited a little bit too long. It's a little bit too big in the frame. But this stage, because there are so few Pokemon, it really has, I think, the biggest room for error. Because, okay, that was apparently good carving. We take those. Everything has to be so precise in order to get, like, a really high score. I can't believe that was a diamond rank. Diamond rank photos are any photo that are 4,000 points or higher. There are, I didn't explain this, there are 3 different, four different tiers of photo. There's bronze, silver, gold, and diamond. Also, time is going to be as soon as the score for this stage pops up on screen. Time. High 2.3. I would have preferred a 2.4, but that is definitely the perfectionist streak in me. That high score listed there, the 2.437, is a top 10 score. So when it comes to that stage specifically, I get super, super just perfectionist-y. And always sort of like want to show off, like, to the best of my abilities. But I believe that a 2.38 would still put you in the top 100. So I will still gladly take that score.
We take those.
Yeah. All around, I'm pretty happy with how this run went. I am going to have to look back at that snowfield tonight, because I do think the game might have misread one of the photos as something else. I'm so confused, like, what slipped my grasp on that stage, because it said 25 species. There's supposed to be 26 that you take pictures of. On a glitched run, there are actually 28, because I don't play this game glitched, but apparently there's a way to, like, keep the route change for going into the cave up on screen without fully doing it all the way to the end of the normal route, which you're not supposed to be able to do. So you can go over there, get an extra 2 species, and then warp back, and you just sort of like drive through the mountain. I don't know how it works. I don't play this game with glitches. It is very funny visually, though. But thank you so much, Lady Arcaders, for having me on. This was so much fun. This was actually my first sort of like event run of a showcase for new Pokemon Snap, so I am very, very happy with how that went, and just so thankful to Lady Arcaders for letting me show it off. Real quick shameless plug, you can find me on Twitch, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SnowballSMB. I love to play this game a lot. I also like to play some Sonic games, some Super Monkey Ball, and some indie games. But that is going to be all from me. Again, thank you so much, Lady Arcaders, for having me.
And thank you for joining us today and showing off new Pokemon Snap. All right, folks, our lovely, lovely wildlife excursion has come to an end for the day. Join us next time on our track mode. We'll be taking a little bit easier time with it, maybe less exciting, because we have some back-to-back mood setters. First with a perfectly ordinary cooking game in Kiosk 90% run by Marforia, and then a also perfectly ordinary pinball game in Screaming Mad George's Paranoia Escape, 90% by Alara. If you would like to join us for that, please do. But as for right now, in this moment, I have been your host, Professor Burtch, and we are about to raid out to Clockwork Ophelia. So if you'd like to stick around for that, please do so. And this has been Track Mode for today. Thank you for joining us.